Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Customer Spotlight session on Reinventing KM, how AI is powering the next wave of innovation. I'm Tom Neff. I'm a Principal Product Manager on the platform team here at Brightspot, where I oversee our platform AI features, and I'll be your host today. Knowledge management is changing rapidly, and AI is a core driver of that transformation. Organizations today are facing the challenge of simplifying complex systems, enabling smarter delivery of information, and orchestrating knowledge at scale. Our goal in this conversation is to explore how leading companies are doing just that and what lessons we can all take away from their experience. I'm thrilled to be joined by two leaders who are approaching knowledge management from very different but equally interesting perspectives. From Barbour EHS, we have Matt Reed, who leads efforts in legal and regulatory compliance knowledge management, where accuracy, timeliness, and trust are absolutely mission critical. And from Stride Incorporated, we have Nicole Lloyd, who works at the intersection of education and technology, helping create curriculum content that adapts to the needs of students and teachers in a digital-first learning environment. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll hear how they're using Brightspot and AI to tackle challenges in their fields, what's working, what they've learned along the way, and where they see knowledge management headed in the future. If you have any questions along the way for me or the panelists, go ahead and drop them in the chat. We've reserved a few minutes at the end to respond. So backstage, Matt won the coin toss, so he'll get to answer the first question first. So for Stride and Barbour, knowledge management means very different things. Could you each share how you define it in your organization and why it's so critical in education and in compliance? Matt?
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everybody. So just to give you a quick overview of what knowledge management means for Barbour EHS. So we are a provider and we work in the governance, risk and compliance area. As you can probably tell by my accent, UK based, but we support international businesses, predominantly those from the UK plus that have perhaps international outreach. For us, knowledge management, that's really around what we do and what we provide to our customers in the predominantly environmental and health and safety area. So put simply, our business is that we consolidate content and information for environmental and health and safety rules, regulations, guidance, direction. We do that in 34 countries, and we do that widely. And what we do is we pull all that information together, and we often talk about ourselves in a very old-fashioned manner as being librarians, and that's probably because we've been doing this since 1941, so it's probably playing to our heritage. So yeah, we pull all of that information together, and we predominantly support medium to large organizations, often those with international reaches, so yeah, large automotive manufacturing businesses. So yeah, we pull it all together. Knowledge management is having all that information, that librarian asset, but the reason people kind of stick with us and kind of really value us is we also give you guidance around how to understand that. So a 172-page document of legislation is very important, very useful, but also kind of tricky to digest. So we give kind of guidance support, directors briefing, internal briefings, and other notes and support to allow companies to kind of digest and understand what they need to do, kind of cut to the chase in some points.
Great. Thank you, Matt. Nicole, what's knowledge management mean in the education space?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Stride K-12 is the leading provider of online learning in the U.S. We operate in 38 states plus DC from our district standpoint, our school standpoint, along with some other B2C type learning environments that aren't directly related to a full performing school. We provide teachers, content, the whole shebang from a school standpoint. So from that standpoint, if you're thinking about knowledge management and the importance of education for our kiddos, it's really important that we ensure content and curriculum we create and curate is standards aligned, accessible from an ADA standpoint, adaptable to student learning levels. It needs to be reusable, discoverable, equitable. So all of those things are critical to our knowledge management and to our content and curriculum and the way that we provide it. Our teachers need that level of confidence that what we're providing to them does support the needs and is specific to state. if we did not have a very tight and controlled and strong mechanism for managing it, we would have difficulty in terms of students meeting graduation requirements, and being able to support different learners from a accessibility standpoint and a legal standpoint, as it changes across every state in every country, or excuse me, every state in the country. It is a bit of a challenge because if you know anything about the US education system, you know it's constantly changing and it's different depending on the political environment across the states. And so our knowledge management is critical to making sure that we can support all those different use cases.
Thank you, Nicole. So what challenges in curriculum development at Stride and in regulatory compliance at Barbour made AI feel like the right solution to explore? Nicole, why don't you start us?
Yeah, partly because of what I was just saying related to the need to the ever-changing environment of education, but also the need to provide so many different things to so many different people, and to be able to make sure we're honoring our compliance commitments. We need solutions that are scalable and adaptable. And AI allows us to be scalable, to move faster, to increase our content offerings. It also allows us to customize in a way that manually creating content does not provide for in that timely manner. So AI is really a step to allow us to meet the needs of all learners in a way that not only supports the ever-changing environment of education, but also meets the learners where they're at. If you think about how kids interact with content these days, it's TikTok, it's short TikTok videos, it's short pieces of content, the attention spans are changing. So those are also things that we have to adapt to and still provide a strong educational experience. And AI allows us to be that fluid with the way that we develop and manage content.
Thanks, Nicole. Matt.
I guess if you step back and think about our kind of librarian and kind of providing content and information core sort of proposition and a reason for being as a business, you just think about some of the use cases we need to do. So we need to collect information. So we need to go through and pull the information and return it because we can't aggregate, obviously on a legal basis, aggregate content and information from various different sources. We need to monitor to see when that changes. When it does change, we need to be able to represent clearly what the change is. And the more that we can make that clear, actionable, understandable for our users, obviously that's adds more value to our product. And also we need to do things like summarizing and redrafting. So all of these things are really great, obvious, natural use cases and really well-established use cases, many no regret moves, you know. Obviously for us, there's lots of considerations around quality and nobody's going to say they want to compromise quality. It's how you step forward. But I guess considerations for us are, you know, we publish guidance around how much ammonia per cubic meter you can have in a chemical environment. You get that wrong, no, that's not a place to be. So obviously some great use cases and some important considerations. And again, just thinking about our business, we've been really successful, been growing very, very well. We work internationally and we'd like to be able to do more of that, but a restriction to that is the physical editorial time to kind of go and find the information, make sure it's trustworthily collected, bring it back, and also to just the processing has been entirely manual. I think so. I joined the team picking up RSS feeds, reading emails, kind of scouring many different sources to keep on top of New Zealand and legislation, or legislation all across the world. So obviously being able to kind of speed that up, deliver quality and present content information in a really reliable manner, maybe to our editors and writers to assess. Really, clear and no regret AI core use case opportunities for us.
Yeah, so now that we've talked in some high-level terms about how you've been approaching the problem, can you dive deep on one specific example of a way that you've used AI to improve your processes?
Yeah, if I'm a good example that we've had, and a big thank you to the Brightspot team, to your colleagues, Tom, who's done a great piece of work. So we did a trial use case of going and pulling back information, because if you imagine we sort of publish content from regulatory bodies, they're quite predictable. They change, government structures change, but normally a government body will provide a particular chunk or perhaps all of the legislation widely available. So by what we've done is we set up a routine that goes and pulls that content and information back. So we did that actually for New Zealand country, because what they do is they put all of their content information. If they change it, they just republish a document. So it's what's called consolidating at source. A new document is provided, and there might be some emails or comms around it, but otherwise that kind of happens in the background. So obviously we want to be on top of that. Our users expect to know that if that's changed, that we're on top of it. That's why they're paying money to us. So we've set up a routine that goes and pulls back that content every day, and then on the Brightspot platform, it pulls that back through. We can see, it's changed. So there's been a variation from PDF. Sorry, my light's turned off here in the background. I'll do a little dance to get it back on. Nighttime-ish here in the UK. So yeah, we'll pull back 2 PDFs, and then we can see that there's a variation between the two, and that's running on assignment desk. So we can see that, and that's driven on the Brightspot platform. That's flagged up as a thing. We can push a button to show a variation, so delta, A versus B, what are the changes for that? A nice bit of summarized text. And that can then flow into our editorial workflow, so the team can then say, okay, great, I'm going to republish that document, because often we provide the source document in our library, but also we can give a nice summarized text of what's changed. And also we can then use variations of that, maybe for like an email outlet or a newsletter guidance, find some images that associate to that. And that's, again, hats off. It's been a great development to work with that. So still a bit of POC with us, but been really fantastic to be able to develop that on the Brightspot platform.
Thanks, Matt. I mean, I love to hear about people having great experiences working with Brightspot. So, Nicole, same question to you. Can you dive deep on one example of how you've been using AI?
Yeah, historically speaking, we've had to have matrices of spreadsheets that have housed our standards data across all the states, and not only the standards data, but the connections between them, and partly because there is content that's reusable from state to state, depending on how the standard is worded. And so we've developed crosswalks in order to be able to really understand how this standard connects to this standard that connects to this standard. And that's all been done manually through hundreds of spreadsheets. And the challenge is that every time a state changes their standards, which they do quite often, all of that has to be changed, and every spreadsheet had to have been changed manually. So what we have done is we've created a mechanism that, well, actually we're in process, so I don't want to claim that we're done, but of scanning Department of Ed websites to get those changes. And then once those changes are captured, to automatically through AI, changing the database. What we did do is we took them out of spreadsheets and put it in the database so that AI could help support those changes in standards. Now, the reason that's significant is because this feeds into a tool that we're using from a knowledge management standpoint, where, customization of courses for different states, and not only different states, but different use cases, whether somebody wants 2-semester courses, 1-semester course, whether they need a course that is for credit recovery or regular course. So there's lots of different variations on courses. In the past, we've had to create all of those iterations manually. So what we're doing is we've tapped into AI and tapped into our Brightspot knowledge base, and the standards tool that I was just talking about, where we're able to pull up a course based off and check the alignment to a state standard immediately, even if it's not developed for that course, and then add existing content that might be close to it that could fit from Brightspot, or we can author new content. Ultimately, it takes this whole course and it puts it back in Brightspot for publishing. And so this idea that we have AI that can help us to create this course quickly, depending on the scenario, is something that we think is going to make us 100 times more efficient, at least, in terms of how we create courses. The other thing that, and the joy of AI and the joy of Brightspot is because we can connect so many things to it, we're also able to integrate an AI metadata tool into Brightspot where it will suggest metadata based off of the AI will suggest it based off of past practices. We're also able to adjust it, add in a QA automation tool, an AI tool that will help support that. So basically, we're using AI to streamline all of our course creation, from the setting it up from a structural standpoint, from the content generation, from the metadata tagging to the QA, and putting all of the pieces in place in order to be able to streamline our practices.
I mean, that's awesome. So you both ended up talking somewhat about like what you might consider back of house applications of AI, ways that you're improving your internal business efficiency. But how have you been able to use AI to change the way that your actual end users, students in your case, Nicole, uh, professionals who rely on your compliance information, Matt, have you been able to change the way that they actually discover, consume, or act on the knowledge that you serve them?
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
So I don't want to say that we've mastered that market. I can say we're in progress of changing the way students consume data through AI. We are actively pursuing helping students to have more personalized learning based off of their performance. So, strong performance is going to suggest the AI tool will suggest maybe extensions on content, whereas you might have some remediation. So basically using AI to personalize the experience for students depending on their performance or their interests. If somebody is very much into dinosaurs, then are there things that we can support that will help that and keep that student engaged? If students like video, can we serve up based off of AI and the way, adapting to what the student likes to be able to serve up video content as opposed to text, as opposed to interactives. So AI is really helping us to personalize the platform and the experience of students based off of their learning model and the things that they are going to keep them engaged. And this goes back to, again, how students consume content differently than they did. So we have to really push hard to make sure that we are engaging them in a way that they want to and should consume content.
Thank you, Nicole. Matt.
I think for us, and again, like Nicole, we're early on the journey, and obviously really keen to sort of see more growth and opportunity. I think where we have had good success and we're really focusing is around how we give user experience the depth, breadth, quality, and speed of availability. That's really critical. That whilst we're in like a legislative market, it obviously a lot of things don't change, but knowing if there's a likelihood that things will. So we do things like horizon scanning. We have diaries running to future of what's going to come through and how that works. So we have done some work. We brought some of that through in terms of our product and how that works, utilizing AI to work with that. The other thing that we've done as well is that whilst we can see improvements and through the kind of natural product management journey, we're looking at tools that we can do to make the product more resonating, but also we've had really good conversations and we've got really good engaged work with our clients. We use our ideas portals and collect those from customers around how they're using AI, so what they're doing. And we've got some really good examples of that helping us shape what we do, because we'll take big content, bits of information and kind of give guidance and information, documentation that sort of supports the understanding and implementation of work. But then again, we've looked at how people have different use needs for that. So again, we sort of think forward to opportunities like personalization. It's people are giving us really good use case examples of the sort of things that they're doing. So again, it makes us think, okay, well, that drives sort of content we should output, or how do we plug interfaces on so that they can do the things they need to do, because they're taking our content and often using AI tools over it themselves. So let's step ahead and either help them do that or start creating some of the content in the way that they're doing it as well. So, but the big driver for us though is driving the absolute credibility and breadth depth of that content and speed of execution. So it's taking the process and sort of really turbocharging it to make sure we deliver what people would expect.
Thanks, Matt. So, in your experiences now implementing AI features, what's one lesson or maybe even a misstep that shaped how you approach, AI-driven knowledge management in your sector? Matt.
Probably the biggest area has been culture. As I said, we're a long-established business. I've got 3 people in the business been with us for 30 years. I don't think there's many companies that genuine job for life piece of work. But again, these are absolute experts and have a really deep set of principles and morals about us as a business and what we do. But then also for all of that strength, you've also got the kind of fear of change, and also, and it probably is the biggest change in editorial processes after the internet. So that's nearly 30 years ago. So obviously is that fear and nature of change. Actually, they used it talking to the team. They're like, this is like when we moved from sending out folders to moving to CD-ROM and then move to the internet. It's like this is, and they're probably right. So it's the next big natural step, and it's a big one. I think that the culture piece, the obvious downsides and sort of adoption sort of nerves. I think the thing that we've seen is the flip of kind of, if you like think about like the ADCAR model, the journey people go through with change management. Go like, what is it? I'm really afraid of it. This is dark arts, and then they've seen it and go, oh my goodness, this can change everything. And then like how we start to really think around where we implement things, what we focus on doing. It does change, it can change, and it will impact every single thing that we do. But where do we apply it best? What drives our models? How do we evolve? It's great to be on a bleeding edge platform like Brightspot, because that takes away some of the sort of technical debt that we would have had on previous sort of like solutions. Allows us to kind of really move forward with that. But it's probably how we then get people on the journey, and then when they're on the train, kind of keep them calm and in their seat and doing the right things and kind of making good steps forwards and being quite aligned around things as well, so that we can progress positively forward as a team.
Thanks, Matt. Nicole.
Yeah, I think I would say ditto, and piggyback on what Matt said. I think change management is the hardest piece. First, the paradigm shift of using AI and what does that mean to my role? What does that mean to what I have to do? And helping people get on board with it. But I also think the idea of using AI in process improvement implies that you have to change your process, and trying to bring people along in terms of not trying to stick to the old ways of doing things with new tools, but to really wrap their arms around AI and say, okay, I have a new tool and a new way of doing things. So making that paradigm shift is really important. From the other standpoint, I think from teachers as our users, there was a lot of pushback at the implementation of AI in the classroom, because teachers fear, rightly so, that it's a cheating tool. And what do you do about that? And I think basically fighting that is a no-win battle. You are not going to be able to stop kids from using AI. I think it's a matter of directing them in the right way to use it and teaching them knowledge prompts and AI prompting so that they can get more in depth. So you can see AI as a good thing to really push the way that you think, as opposed, and let AI do the knowledge, the lower level Bloom's work, if that's what needs to happen, and then you can really push the thinking. So that's a paradigm shift in the way teachers think about the usage of AI in their classrooms. We've also had to develop classes for we have actual courses now for teachers for professional development and for students on how do they use AI in their learning and their teaching. So but those are all part of the paradigm shift in terms of bringing people on board with the use of AI.
So for organizations here who might just be starting their AI journey, what's one practical first step that you'd recommend based on your experiences? Nicole.
I think one of the things that really helped me is when I finally figured out that content is data. And so really thinking about content as being a piece of data that just has to be consumed or be using AI as a connection point from data. I think that really helped. I think the other thing that I would recommend is don't try to boil the ocean. Pick something that can make a difference and tackle that, and then you'll start to see other areas and other use cases that AI would really play a role in, not only your processes but your users in terms of what they do within your content and your platform.
Thanks, Nicole. Matt.
I think probably two things jump out. I know you said one, but the two things jump out. I think trusting and supporting, again, I'm sorry, it feels like a sales pitch for Brightspot. I didn't get my commission check yet, but I appreciate Lucy was on the session before, but it did some amazing work, Lucy and other members of the team have done to help us on their journey, because again, with the culture change, capability change, we're relatively new into Brightspot as well. Lots of questions, lots of ideas, fears, but actually probably more around keeping us focused has been really useful, and actually understanding a bit of art about the possible has been really useful, and the team have been fantastic. So I put a call out for that. But again, the other bit for us as perhaps a more traditional business is I think that in many ways we are a leader, and a brand in certain territories in particular is by far the strongest. But I think being a fast follower, so I'm going to do my magic wave again. It's the joys of ESG and sustainability lighting. I would absolutely say look closely and learn from experience of what others have done well, and kind of learn from the best. Take some good steps. We're a pretty conservative bunch, you probably tell. Nature of what we do, we kind of have to be. And I think that's learning really well and thinking hard and listening really closely to your customers. I think it's helped us focus in the right areas. That's been one of the biggest things for us, is around kind of, yes, got product roadmaps and product feedback sessions and engagements, but actually seeing what people are doing, how they're using our content and information, and also then thinking around that rather than efficiency and kind of speed and things, but that I've mentioned, but really understanding where we're meeting them, what the biggest problems are, and then making sure we're focusing on those deliverables has been really key, and that's helped us focus down, knuckle down perhaps in some areas to drive most from an AI point of view.
Well, thank you, Matt. And thank you both. That concludes my questions for today, but we have saved a few minutes for questions from the audience. Tiff, I don't know if you've been keeping track of that, but
Yes, we did have some stuff come in via chat, and everyone, you don't have to go to Q&A. You can just live chat any additional questions that you have. We had a really interesting question early on. Let me find this, and this one is actually for you, Nicole. Sorry, I'm scrolling through the chat. I will find you. It was a very provocative question around, are these tools available to help identify AI-created content that students may be submitting as original work? And Nicole, I think it was interesting how you called out, like, we can't ultimately stop students, but, are there tools available to help identify AI-created work from students?
Yeah, I mean, there absolutely are. There's companies like Turnitin and other companies out there that do allow for that scanning of AI enhanced work or or copied work. Yes, so there are tools out there that are available, and I think that a lot of our teachers incorporate those into their classrooms in terms of double checking. It's particularly as it relates to an English language arts or an essay or things like that. We also have we're very much of the mind that we support student AI use as long as we do it responsibly. So we do encourage that. We do help teachers to understand. That's part of that course that I was talking about from a professional development, is how students can ensure that, or excuse me, how teachers can ensure that their students are not using it for cheating in a way that inhibits their learning.
All right. I think another good comment here too was, how important the reminder is that content is data. Matt, do you want to expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's been a really good learning for us. Again, the kind of journey that we've been on. I think that the fact that we've made such a significant step again in terms of our technical journey, using content and information and trying to think around how that flows through what we do and the role that we have playing in our users' life. I think that we've gone through a really good journey around because of that librarian nature of what we do. I think we kind of have thought about it as an archive for the good and bad. You know, the kind of front end experience perhaps in the past has sometimes rubbed and reflected a little bit against that and played to that stereotype. But to us, the kind of cataloging, the structuring, the way that things work, again, which we've been able to really deliver very well through the Brightspot platform, which has been fantastic. But actually to think of it as such, and also because we're part of a broader group of governance, risk and compliance businesses, we're now in a position where, because we give great information and leadership and support for the other sort of 6 or 7 products that sit alongside Barbour, we're now looking at options. So for example, we actually have a big e-learning business. One of the biggest e-learning providers is a sister business in Europe. So actually when people are in consuming that content and information and trying to work their way through things, but actually it's quite a technical area, because of course a lot of e-learning courses are in the same sort of sector and support as what we do on the content advisory regulatory intelligence side. How can we syndicate and swap that information through? So very much absolutely it's content, but thinking it through as data. And as Nicole said, things like, you know, that natural match around meta, intent, content information, using tools. Again, we haven't quite got to that point of syndicating yet, but now the problem isn't sharing the content information, it's the contextualization of it. And probably the other side within that is the personalization element as well. And I think that that's an area that I can see that's going to be, you know, a great opportunity for us in terms of making that relevance of our content information for users.